Hey guys, my name's Noah Fitzgerald, and today I have a brand new vehicle for you, just released months ago. The brand new 2024 Nissan 400Z. Now, the 400Z is kind of a special car. It is a car from the lineage of the Nissan brand, evolving off of the 370Z, which was a long time Z car. Now, the 370Z had its up parts. It was the successor to the 350Z, which brought in the VQ V6 engine that all the JDM guys absolutely adored. Now, that stayed in the 3.7 liter VQ that was in the 370Z. However, the VQ, I can report, is gone for the 400Z. Now, the 400Z is the successor to the 370, so it gets much needed upgrades and all of the new styling changes that brings it up just to that upper echelon and new modern level of automotive sports cars. Now, the most controversial thing is what is powering this new 300Z. The looks are one thing, but the powertrain is what the people who are driving these cars are really interested in, and I'm here to report there is a very, very good powertrain in the new 400Z. Powering it, of course, is a 3-liter twin-turbo V6, the same V6 that you'll see in Infiniti Q50 and Q60 400 Red Sport models. It is a twin-turbo V6, putting out 400 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque in this iteration. It is sent through your choice of a 9-speed automatic or a 6-speed manual. So that means you really get a good, enriching driving experience from this car because you get your choice of transmission options. You can get the more involved manual transmissions that, of course, most enthusiasts will go for, or you can go for the more dailyable 9-speed auto, which again is a very good transmission. However, if I were buying a 400Z, I would definitely swing for that 6-speed manual. Now, all this power in all the Z models is being sent through the rear wheels just as an enthusiast sports car should be. Now, to point out some of the competition for this new Z, there is a lot for the upcoming since it's a new model, there's a lot of new competition in the game, and it really has some fierce competitors in the market. Most notably, the Toyota Supra, which is another controversial vehicle, being that it's mostly a BMW, and with the 2023 model year Supra, they added a manual, which gives it an even more competition in its class. So that's the real question. Would you rather have this car over a Supra? Of course, powertrains are one thing for these sports cars, but you don't really care about how fast or how good a car sounds if it's ugly. And I'm here to report, just like the 350 and the 370Zs, the 400Z does not disappoint in the looks department. They went for a more retro look for this new Z. They wanted to go back to their heritage, and that they did, and they made it look amazing. There are a lot of new cars coming onto the market today, most notably the Ford Bronco, or even maybe the Bronco Sport, that are reiterations of their old vehicles that they're trying to bring into the modern era, and I think that's something that the 400Z does the best. These heritage cars from Nissan have always been good from a looks department, and their enthusiast cars are some of the best. With the GTR is one of the best retro design new cars on the market. It is one of the best sports cars on the market, period. And the 400Z follows not very hard behind. Now, that leads me into some exterior looks. Let me explain it to you. At the front, you have a very simple design. You get full LED headlights with LED DRLs and LED turn signals that look like they just came from a 1970s Datsun. They are very heritage, and I think they really bring old touches in a modern way to a new car, and they made it look extremely well. You get below that, and really the only other thing you have on this car is your grille that lets in air to that twin-turbo V6. There are no fancy air out inlets. There are no fancy diffusers. There's no anything. It's just simple. It's simple and elegant, but somehow it says so much with so much simplicity. all the angles, all the retro design. It just says something about the car, and it somehow simplistically is gorgeous. Now you get to the side, and that's where you really start to see that this is a Z car. It is no different than any other Z car that we've seen before. It has the classic Fairlady Datsun styling that you've seen since the 1960s, and it looks good. I like it. It's a nice two-door sports car. It's got a nice boxy rear end, nice flowy front end. It looks like a sports car. It gets nice, I believe, 19-inch wheels. It is a very good setup, big brakes. It is really meant to be a sports car, but it's meant to do so elegantly. Now, we get to the back. And now the back is kind of, on most cars, the staple to me. I always think that the rear end on cars is what automakers choose to focus the most on because it's what you see the most often. And Nissan did not fail at this. They did an absolutely amazing job with this. Now, like the front end, they did a lot of heritage designing back from the 240Z back in the 90s, full LED lighting, and they went kind of retro with diagonals. They didn't overcomplicate it. There are other sports cars on the market, like the Miata, like the Supra, and mainly really any other like Audi product you see from any German brand. They tend to overcomplicate it, and there's something so good about this Z. It's simple. And that's what enthusiasts want. They don't want a whole bunch of complex technologies in their car that they know are going to go wrong. They want simple. And that's exactly what the Nissan brings, but you don't leave anything out. You still get all the amenities, but they managed to make it look simple and elegant, and they brought that retro aspect into the new modern cars, and I think they did so absolutely astronomically well. It is an amazing rear end of a car. You get dual exhaust for that twin-turbo V6, which I may admit doesn't sound very good stock, but you can get a Nismo exhaust, and that is what makes this car sound amazing. Now that leads me in to my next point, and that is trim levels. You of course have the base level Z, which is basically you get base amenities, you get all the good goodies that you get on the outside. However, it is just the base model. Then you can upgrade to the premium, which is a very, very nice, a bit more luxury touches. It's basically the top appointment for the Z. Now you do get later on a Nismo version, which is the high-performance version of all of Nissan's cars, and they do add extra performance. We do not yet have very much numbers on that. I will report it to you in another video as soon as I get the numbers for the Nismo. However, just know that it is coming sometime in the future. Now that leads me on to another point. There's a lot of competition for this car. And I think from an exterior standpoint, the 400ZX is one of the best looking in the competition. Now, of course, the exterior of a vehicle and the powertrain can be amazing on a vehicle, but where you spend the most time is what has to be the best, and that is the interior. And I am very happy to report that the interior on the Nissan 400Z is just as good as the exterior. Now on the exterior, you of course saw all the simplest design. Now you get in the inside, and it is a suite of modern technology. As soon as you get behind the wheel, you notice that there is a digital gauge cluster. Unlike the 370Z, it is fully configurable, full color, all the information you could ever want. You can get fuel economy, you can get rev counter, you can get speedo, anything you could possibly want is in this digital gauge cluster. Nissan does some of the best digital gauge clusters in the business, and I'm happy to report that it is in the 400Z. You also get a full color heads-up display depending on what trim you get. It is an awesome display, and I think Nissan does some of the best budget displays in the business. Now you also, behind that gauge cluster, get a steering wheel with haptic touch buttons that is very ahead of the game, very good for the price point that this vehicle is at. Normally you only see it on Range Rovers, Land Rovers, or even Jags, which are far above the price point that you can even get one of these 400ZXs. Sorry, 400Zs. Now you get over to that and you see that these new infotainment system is integrated into the 400Z. I really like Nissan's infotainment system. It's very mainstream, it's very minimalist. All the things are where you would think they are. You get Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, anything you could ever want is in this infotainment system, and they do so in a very simple design, unlike some of the American competitors, such as Ford with their sync system, which is now way too overcomplicated. Now, below that, you get haptic touch climate controls, which is something that is good and bad depending on how you view them. I don't so much love haptic controls, but I do appreciate that Nissan does still consider the fact that we do want physical climate controls, and I'm very happy that they integrated them, unlike some of the German brands. Not naming names or pointing fingers, BMW. Of course, you do get a heated steering wheel and heated and ventilated seats. So this is a very, very well equipped vehicle for the class that you're getting it at. You get a lot of amenities. You get Nissan's full suite of safety systems: rear cross traffic alert, blind spot monitoring, backup camera. Everything you could want is in this 400Z. Now, of course, some of it is optional, some of it is standard, but it is available in this vehicle, and that's what matters. You can get this however you want. And that's something that I think Nissan really sells their vehicles on, is they can really market them however they want. You can configure them however you want, so that way they can fit to multiple audiences instead of just one. Like the competition, I'd like to compare it to the Supra that also comes in a manual option, and I think the manual option on the Supra is kind of a letdown because they did go with that BMW manual, and BMW manuals have a reputation of being a bit squishy, and the 400Z is not that. It is a Nissan-derived manual, and it's really good. I would choose the 6-speed over the 9-speed any day. Even though the 9-speed is really good, it's miles ahead of the Supra. It's way more ahead than the Supra could ever be, especially from a technology standpoint and from a look standpoint. So out of the two, I would choose the 400ZX way before I would choose any Supra. Now, you hear me talking all this good stuff about the Nissan 400Z, and now you're probably to the point where you're like, hey, this is a pretty nice car. You've been telling me all these good things about it, how amazing the tech is, how amazing it looks, the good power that's coming from it. But how much does this Z cost? And I'm happy to report it is one of the best budget-friendly sports car options as well. Starting out at only $40,000, you can get yourself into the base model manual 400Z, and that is what your heart's content. That was what I would want. It's an amazing vehicle, bare bones. You can track this vehicle. It's amazing. But if you have to have that premium pack, then you can step up to that, and it'll cost you about $47,000. Now, I'm just saying this because the 400Z in its current iteration tops out at about $50,000. You can't get higher. They're amazingly priced cars for what you get. Nissan's always been really good at that, and that's no different with the 400Z. Now, with the Nismo coming out, we don't know much about it yet. However, we do know prices will start at about $60,000. So if you want the Nismo, you gotta cuff up the extra $10,000 for the extra performance. That's nothing new from Nissan. We've seen that for many years in the past, and that's what you're going to get from this 400ZX. Altogether, I think the 400ZX is an amazing car inside and out, tech-wise, all of the styling-wise. I think it's one of the most gorgeous cars in its class, and I would take one over the Toyota Supra any day. But what I'm wanting to know is, what competition would you take over the 400ZX? My name's Noah Fitzgerald. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.